Hello, and welcome to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. I am, of course, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, once again flying solo, and I'm actually enjoying these solo podcasts. I think now that I've got this time freed up, that everyone's in quarantine, it seems it gets a lot easier to do these. And oddly enough, this is something I've wanted to do for quite some time, but I've just put off, and so I think I'm going to try to keep this up for a little while. Before I begin, one of the things that I want to mention is that if you are not already on my email list, you are missing out big time. My email list is where all my best grade A, top shelf, top of the line material goes out, not on social media. And if you're on my social media accounts, I think that's awesome. But the email list is really where it's at. It's daily. And again, it's also the only place, by the way, that you can get a hold of my programs, challenges, courses, tutorials, all sorts of other fun stuff like that. So in the show notes, you're going to find a link that where you can sign up for the 8-week kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. Or depending on when you're listening to this, I might have switched it to something different. I do have another cool free ebook coming out shortly. I will make that announcement soon, but as of right now, it's still under wraps. So at any rate, sign up, get on the email list, get all my best info daily, and that's it. What I want to talk about today is a little bit crass in the way it's said. So I'm not going to actually say the word, but it is something that I heard the great success coach Dan Pena say, and it's just effing do it. Now, obviously, there's some shades of Nike in there somewhere. But Dan Pena is a very successful dude. Probably not the kind of guy that I would want to be friends with, but nevertheless, he does have some gems in terms of what it takes to be successful. And one of those things is to just effing do it. A lot of times people spend, and this is especially true in the fitness world, people spend so much time thinking about trying to do the quote-unquote perfect program. And in the meantime, they're not really doing anything. So what ends up happening is that they spend all this time thinking and none of the time doing. And realistically speaking, you're going to get about as far doing that as if you were to say, okay, I'm going to go to the store on foot, but I'm going to try to map out what I think would be the fastest path where I'm not going to bump into anybody that I don't want to see, and so on and so forth. If you just leave and you get started, if you have to change course, you're still going to get a lot farther, a lot faster than if you just stayed in your house and strategized the whole time. A great example is actually like what I said earlier. I've been wanting to do more podcasting for ages, and I've been overthinking it. Like, how am I going to set it up? How often am I going to do it? And instead, I'm just effing doing it. So there's something to be said for that. But when it comes to your health, this is particularly important because, you have to, ideally you have to move every day. You have to eat every day. You should move every day as well. And one of the things that I learned from a good friend of mine, and actually a guy who's been on the show before, is the great Mark Rifkin. And Mark has been a high-level competitor in at least 4 different sports. Like gymnastics, he went head-to-head with Kurt Thomas in the late 70s, I think. And Kurt Thomas ended up representing the U.S. in the Olympics, and I think he won gold. So Riff was at that level that he could compete with a guy like that. He competed in triathlons, he competed in bodybuilding, he competed in powerlifting, and then he became a master kettlebell instructor. But one of the things that he said, and that's really stuck with me over the years, is that consistency trumps intensity. And what that means is that what you do most often is going to be the thing that has the biggest impact on you. So, for example, if you sit around all the time, it's going to be reflected in your posture. It's going to be reflected in your athleticism and your coordination. Whereas if you make it a point to move every day, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be like 2-3 hours a day, but even if you take like a 20-minute walk, it's going to make a big difference. And you do it every day, the impact is going to be there, and it's going to do that without draining you. One of the things that I've encountered when trying to get this message across to people is people have this idea about themselves like, oh, I'm just, XYZ kind of a person. One gal in particular was the well, still is, the wife of a colleague and friend of mine in Jerusalem, Israel. And I had trained him. He was a physical therapist, very brilliant physical therapist. And his wife, wanted to start training as well. And so we met up to train, and we were talking about, what her training schedule would be. And one of the things that she said really stuck with me, because she said, I'm really an all or nothing kind of person. So, I'm either all in for fitness or I'm not all in. And I said, I don't really think that's the case, because think about it, you're not really an all or nothing person. If you think about it, when you left the house to drive here today, you run into some stop signs? She's like, yeah. I was like, did you have to stop at any stop lights? Yeah. Were there any places where you could drive faster than other places? And were there other places where you had to drive more slowly? She's like, yeah. So I said, well, no, just imagine if you were really an all or nothing person, you would have said, I'm not going to leave the house unless I know that I can get to my destination without running into any stop signs, without running into any stop lights, without having to change my speed, without running into any sort of obstacle, but you didn't do that. And so she kind of started to understand that she's not really an all or nothing type of person. And I'm just using her as an example because, this was something that happened to me specifically. But I've talked to other people who have the exact same approach, the exact same mindset. Or it's really not even a mindset. It's kind of like an excuse that they have for themselves for not training. But realistically speaking, we typically only apply that all or nothing attitude to the things that we feel like an emotional investment in, namely success or failure. Like if you set yourself up to fail and then you fail and you expected it, you're like, well, I knew this was going to happen. But people don't want to give something an honest try and have the potential to fail. And I think this is what stops a lot of people. So one of the things that I have had people do very successfully in the past has been lowering their expectations for their training. And I know that doesn't sound good, all right? Particularly if you saw that old SNL skit, Lowered Expectations, with the video dating service. It's not like that at all. It's not about doing things half-heartedly or without paying much attention, but really getting out of that emotional sort of mindset that you're in when it comes to your fitness. So about 5 years ago, I was teaching a ladies group fitness class in a town outside of Jerusalem, Israel, by the way. I found out last week there's a Jerusalem, New York, and I also have heard that there's a Jerusalem, Pennsylvania, so I'm talking about the original Jerusalem. And at this point, this was 2015, I was doing a lot of flying. Like, I think I flew abroad from Israel like 8 times that year. And they were getting a little frustrated because it was like every 2 weeks, or every 3 weeks, my classes would be canceled for a week because I had to go fly somewhere and teach. Usually doing bodyweight workshops and original strength stuff and that sort of a thing. And so I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start up a group messaging thing. And every day, everybody owes me 5 minutes of movement. And it could be just some deep breathing. It could be crawling around on the floor. It could be going for a walk. It doesn't really matter what it is, but everybody owes me 5 minutes. And you're going to check in here so that we can see that you've put the 5 minutes in. And the caveat was you can do more than 5 minutes if you really want to, but you're only required to do 5 minutes. So if you're really just not feeling it that day, the buzzer beeps at 5 minutes, you're done. But if you're feeling really good, you can keep going. So within a few short weeks, almost everybody was doing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Periodically, people would fall back to the 5-minute mark when they really needed to. And they did that without feeling guilty about it because they had set themselves up to succeed by lowering what it means to be successful. Because obviously everybody's got 20 minutes a day to work out, 30 minutes a day. But whether or not you have that time and whether or not you're going to invest it, my experience has been it depends a lot on your emotional and mental state. So if you believe that the only way you're going to get in a quality workout is if you can devote 30 straight minutes to it, odds are there are going to be times when you really actually can't get the 30 minutes in there, and then you're going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel like you've missed your opportunity, and now you're falling behind, and that's going to give you an excuse to quit. So the 5 minutes a day works like gangbusters. I'll give you another example. A guy I have a Facebook group called the Hebrew Hammers Hidden Hideaway. It is a private Facebook group, but you can request to join, and provided you are not a D-bag, I will probably let you in. Somebody in there, a gentleman named Adam, said that he no longer buys the excuse that people don't even have 5 minutes to work out, or that they can't get in a good workout in 5 minutes, because he was doing a program of mine. It was a short-term challenge called the Gatrix, based on just some gait pattern movements like marching, a particular lunging variation, and so on. And the amount of hard work people were doing just in under 5 minutes in most cases was pretty remarkable, and I got a lot of great feedback on it. And the big takeaway from that is that a lot of people were seeing some pretty cool results with between 4 minutes and 7 minutes of working out on a daily basis. So all that is to say, to summarize, I'm going to summarize like this. There's a T-shirt that I saw. A bodybuilder named Paul Carter had this available on his website a while ago. Death is winning. Do something. All right, that is all for today. The moral of the story is just effing do it. Doesn't take a lot. Doesn't take a whole ton of time. Doesn't take a whole ton of effort. You just got to get out there, get some work done, and call it a day. All right, it's okay if you don't work out for 2 hours a day. If all you got is 5 minutes, start there, add up, take your time. And as always, have fun and happy training.